What happens when a 74-year-old woman decides she won't be treated like outdated furniture? The way her family tried to erase her sparked a showdown no one saw coming. I was 74 when I found out that kindness has an expiration date. Not for me. I was still handing out baked goods like a local grandma on a Hallmark Channel rerun. No, I'm talking about how people receive kindness. You do it long enough and suddenly, they start looking at you like you've lost your marbles. Or worse, like you're in the way. It all started with a damn blueberry pie. Not just any pie. This was the pie my granddaughter Sarah always loved as a kid. I used to make it when she visited during summer breaks, back when her face would light up at the smell of cinnamon and sugar, and she'd run barefoot on my porch like it was the edge of the world. Now, I hadn't seen her in 9 months, and that included Christmas. So, when I heard from my son Jeff that Sarah might drop by for a few minutes on her way back from Boston, I jumped out of bed like a teenager on prom night. I set my arthritic knees aside, pulled out the old recipe card, and got to work like a woman possessed. The smell in the kitchen made the house feel alive again. It reminded me of a time when I was needed, when I was wanted. Big mistake. Because that pie, that damn pie, was the last act of kindness I performed before they started talking to me like I was the family dog with dementia. Sarah showed up looking like someone stepped out of a yoga catalog. Her face didn't light up. She barely looked at me when I opened the door. "Hi, Nana," she said. No hug, just the kind of flat greeting you give a stranger you recognize from somewhere but can't place. "I made you your favorite," I said, my hands still floured, my apron crooked. She blinked. "Pie? Oh. I don't really eat sugar anymore." "Right, of course. Silly me. I should have known that kindness doesn't fit into a low-carb lifestyle." We sat. I offered tea. She accepted water. And then, in the same cheerful tone she used when she used to show me her A-plus report cards, she said the 4 words that knocked the wind out of my chest. "You're imagining it, Nana." That's what she said when I told her I'd been feeling lonely, like the house was getting quieter and the phone wasn't ringing as much. "You're imagining it." Like I had made up the silence, like my instincts were just the side effects of too much cable news and soft furniture. It got worse. Jeff and Linda came over the next day, and when I say came over, I mean they walked in like realtors on a listing tour. Jeff had a clipboard. I kid you not. Linda walked into my bedroom and said, loud enough for me to hear, "The light here's not great, but maybe she won't notice." I didn't know what to say, so I just asked if they wanted some pie. Linda smiled, the way people smile at strangers in the waiting room of a doctor's office. "No thanks, we're cutting carbs." And then Jeff sat down across from me at the kitchen table, like he was about to fire me. "Mom," he said, "we've been thinking." Now, let me pause here. If you're a woman over 70, and someone opens a sentence with, "We've been thinking," let me tell you, run. Nothing good follows that phrase unless it's about a surprise cruise, and even then, don't pack until you see tickets. He continued, "You've been forgetting things. You said you didn't remember calling Sarah last week. And then Linda said you told her the mail hadn't come for days, but we saw the mailman come that morning." I stared at them. So I forgot a call. Maybe I didn't see the mail. So what? Linda leaned in. "We're not saying you're losing it, but we looked into a place. Just to talk. Just options." Then came the other 4 words. "It's for your safety." You know what? Screw that. You want to know what happened next? They took my old documents, my insurance stuff, my medical forms, told me they'd help keep them organized. The next morning, half my drawers had been rearranged. My pills were in labeled bags like I was a patient already. They brought over a nurse to chat. She called me sweetie 5 times in 15 minutes. I asked her age. She said 31. I'm not saying I wasn't polite, but when she left, I may have muttered something about her probably not surviving a week without an app telling her when to breathe. Later that night, I looked at my reflection. Same eyes, same mind. Same woman who raised 2 kids, worked 3 jobs, and kept her husband secret about that affair until the day he died. Don't think I didn't know, Richard. I just had bigger things to do. But now, they think I'm fragile, confused, disposable. I sat on the porch as the sun went down and asked myself the kind of question you ask when you're not ready to let the world put you away. What if I'm not the problem? What if it's them? Their guilt, their discomfort with the fact that I've lived long enough to remind them of what's coming? The next morning, I made a pot of coffee and looked out the window. And I decided something. They wanted me to act like I didn't notice what was happening, like I couldn't see the plans being made around me, without me. Well, they were about to find out exactly how imaginary I was. Because this story is just getting started. What happens next changed everything. You won't want to miss how it all unfolds. Stay with me, because things are about to escalate in ways they never expected. You ever been robbed politely? Not with a mask and a gun. I mean the slow kind. The kind where they take things from you while smiling, while saying it's for your own good, and then offering to make you tea while they do it. That's exactly what was happening to me. And it started the morning I found my legal folder gone. Now, let me be clear. I'm not the kind of woman who forgets where she puts things. I've been in charge of my own taxes, medical records, and property paperwork since before my kids knew how to spell mortgage. But when I opened that drawer and saw nothing but empty folders and a few old greeting cards from a Walgreens sale bin, I knew damn well someone had been inside my things. I didn't have to look far. There on the kitchen counter, in handwriting that looked like it belonged to a kindergarten teacher, was a note. We picked up some of your documents just to help you organize. Don't worry. We've got it all under control. Linda. Let me translate that for you. We've decided you're incompetent, and now we're taking over. Love and kisses. I called Jeff. No answer. Called again. Straight to voicemail. I wasn't surprised. He always hated confrontation. Too busy hiding behind emails and checking with Linda. When I finally got him on the 3rd try, he answered with that infuriatingly calm tone he used when he was about to gaslight me. Hey, Mom, everything okay? No, I said. Where are my documents? There was a pause. Which ones? The ones you stole. Mom, don't be dramatic. Linda just picked up some of your files. We're trying to help. I didn't ask for help. Another pause. Longer. Well, maybe you didn't, but you need it. Boom. There it was. The patronizing verdict, delivered like he was talking to a toddler who wandered out into the street. And you know what stung the most? I raised this man. I taught him how to tie his shoes, how to not cry when he scraped his knees. I didn't raise him to turn around and treat me like a burden on a spreadsheet. Over the next few days, the help kept coming. Linda showed up with printed pamphlets from assisted living facilities, all color-coded and cheerful like Disney brochures for the recently abandoned. This one has music therapy, she said, and a wellness spa. I stared at her. You do know I have a bathtub and a radio, right? She laughed like I was joking. I wasn't. Then came the doctor's visit. Not my doctor, mind you. Some chipper young thing named Melanie who introduced herself like she was hosting a talk show. Hi, Margaret. I'm just here to check in. No pressure, just a friendly wellness review. I almost told her to check her attitude at the door, but I let her in. Why? Because part of me wanted to see how far they were willing to go. She asked me things like, "Do you sometimes forget where you are? Do you feel sad when you're alone? Have you had trouble managing daily tasks?" I stared at her. "I mowed my damn lawn last week, honey. Alone. With a manual mower. And I'm pretty sure you'd call DoorDash if your apartment got dusty." Her smile faltered. Good. The next red flag came from the bank. Apparently, someone had called pretending to be me, asking questions about my accounts. Verifying information, they said. I marched into the branch, raised hell, and confirmed what I already suspected. Jeff and Linda were trying to consolidate my finances, to streamline things. I'm sure their next step was to give me a weekly allowance and a bedtime. They called it concern. I called it a hostile takeover. And the worst part? Everyone around me just nodded sympathetically and said, "They mean well." Do they? Do people who mean well dig through your mail, move your prescriptions, whisper when you leave the room? Because that's what they were doing. And I was starting to feel like a ghost in my own home. So, I did what any sane woman would do. I fought back. I started locking my doors, all of them. I stopped answering Linda's texts. I got a notebook and wrote down every single conversation, date, and suspicious thing I noticed. Call it a petty little log, but it made me feel like I was keeping score. And then I visited my lawyer. Oh yes, old Howard Stevenson. 83 years old, hearing aids in both ears, and still sharper than a room full of razor blades. I told him what was going on. He nodded. Classic elder manipulation wrapped in hugs and hashtags. You need a new will, a trust, and a flamethrower. We laughed. Sort of. By the time I left his office, I had a locked-down trust, updated directives, and peace of mind. At least for now. Of course, Jeff and Linda didn't like that. The next time they visited, they brought a counselor. Just to talk, they said. A family mediator. She wore sensible shoes and a tone that sounded like she'd rather be anywhere else. They sat me down like I was on trial. "Mom, we're concerned. We just want what's best. It's not safe for you to live alone anymore." Each sentence was delivered with that same fake compassion, the kind that feels more like a shove than a hug. So I looked them both in the eye and said, "Let me be very clear. You may not like how I live, but I built this house, paid every bill, and buried a husband in that yard. I won't be boxed up and bubble-wrapped so you can feel less guilty when you forget to call." Silence. Even the mediator looked stunned. But you know what the kicker is? They didn't back off. If anything, they doubled down. More pamphlets, more friendly visits, more little signs that they were trying to erase me while pretending to protect me. I found myself wondering, when did being old turn into being irrelevant? When did wisdom start getting treated like confusion? And how the hell did kindness, decades of it, become ammunition for the people who were supposed to love me most? This is it. This is the turning point. Everything I've been putting up with, all the quiet, the gaslighting, the theft, it's about to hit a wall. This is the climax. And you won't believe what happens when I finally stop playing nice. Stay with me, because in part 3, everything breaks wide open. You'd think that after raising 2 children, surviving the death of a husband, and balancing 3 jobs in my 50s, I'd be allowed to age with a little dignity. Spoiler alert, I wasn't. By the time the 3rd week of this silent siege rolled around, my life no longer felt like my own. My mail had accidentally started being rerouted to Linda's address. Jeff had helped set up my email to forward to his. And don't even get me started on the bank. One friendly teller whispered, "You okay, Ms. O'Hara?" like she was watching a crime scene in progress. Was I okay? Let's see. My grown son was treating me like a confused liability. My daughter-in-law had started referring to my home as this place, and they'd officially made me feel like a trespasser in my own life. So, I was not okay. But I was about to be something much better. Done. It all hit the fan one rainy Tuesday. I remember the weather because I love storms, always have. They make the world honest. Everything that's weak bends. Everything fake gets exposed. That morning, I caught Linda in my backyard. Not knocking, not calling, not even pretending. She was going through the shed. I stepped onto the porch and shouted over the rain, "Lose something!" She jumped, then put on that awful fake smile. "Oh, hey, I was just looking for the lawn spreader. Jeff said maybe we could fix your yard up before it gets out of control." Out of control. Right. Because dry grass and a few weeds apparently meant I needed to be put in a padded room. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stared at her until she stopped speaking. That was the first time I noticed something behind her eyes. Not guilt, not concern, entitlement. She really thought she had the right. Inside, I made a pot of black coffee and waited. I didn't have to wait long. Jeff arrived less than an hour later. Apparently Linda had called him from the driveway. She'd felt unsafe. Unsafe. In my yard. When he walked in, his mouth was already moving. "Mom, we need to talk. This is getting out of hand. You've been avoiding us, locking your doors, accusing us of stealing, because you did." His face fell. "I'm still your mother," I said, keeping my voice low. "But if you think I'll sit here while you dismantle my life one piece at a time and call it love, you've got another thing coming." He raised his hands. "Nobody's dismantling anything. We just want what's best." There it was again, that phrase, the same old 4 words, dressed in concern but soaked in condescension. We just want what's best. No, Jeff. You want what's easiest. That night, I pulled out my old journals. Not for nostalgia, for evidence. I reviewed every appointment I'd made and kept, every meal I'd prepped, every mile I'd walked. I compared it to the narrative they were spinning, that I was forgetful, confused, unable to manage. And then I saw it, a pattern. Every time I asked for a little more connection, a phone call, a visit, a birthday dinner, I was met with distance. But the moment I started asserting independence, they swooped in, because if I needed them, they could control me. But if I didn't, I was a threat. So I made a decision. No more silent treatment, no more polite smiles, no more understanding their behavior while they rewrote my story. The next morning, I called a family meeting. Jeff and Linda came over reluctantly, probably expecting an apology, or better yet, my signature on some "we're helping you" paperwork. They sat on the couch. I stood, and then, calmly, I laid it out. "You've crossed a line. You've lied. You've taken what isn't yours. You've spoken to doctors about me behind my back. You've tampered with my mail, my accounts, my medical records." They both opened their mouths. I raised my hand. "Don't. Just don't. I gave you decades of love. I wiped your noses, patched your knees, paid your college tuition. And this is how you repay me? By making me feel like I'm some old dog who needs to be put down gently?" Linda gasped. Jeff looked like someone had punched him in the gut. Good. I wasn't finished. I'm not confused. I'm not unstable. I'm angry. And I'm done pretending this is okay. Then I handed them 2 envelopes. "What's this?" Jeff asked. "My legal counsel's contact. You'll speak to him from now on." He looked stunned. You got a lawyer? No, I hired one. They didn't storm out. They melted. All their puffed-up authority crumbled into awkward silence. Linda blinked a lot. Jeff rubbed his hands together like he wanted to explain things away, but couldn't, because I'd taken away their favorite tool, my silence. I walked them to the door like a hostess seeing off unwanted guests. When Linda turned to say something, maybe one last attempt to twist the knife, I stopped her. You keep saying, "We just want what's best," I said, but you never once asked what I wanted. She didn't answer, didn't have to. The door clicked shut behind them, and I felt light, not because it was over, but because for the first time in weeks, maybe months, I was in control again. That night, I lit a candle, put on a record, and poured a glass of wine. I wasn't celebrating. I was reclaiming something. My space, my story, my damn name. Because this wasn't just about me. It was about every older woman who's been talked down to, dismissed, or gently pushed out of her own life like she was part of the furniture. We don't get loud because we're tired. We get loud because we've been quiet for too damn long. This was the moment everything changed. But nothing ends with one confrontation. In part 4, I find out just how far they're willing to go and how far I'm willing to push back. You won't want to miss what happens when the truth finally comes out. Let me tell you something no one warns you about getting older. You don't disappear. They just stop looking at you. You're still in the room, still breathing, still thinking sharp thoughts and feeling real pain. But to them, to your children, your doctors, your neighbors, you become background noise. Furniture with a heartbeat. A sweet old lady who means well. Well, I was done meaning well. After that showdown in my living room, I expected silence from Jeff and Linda. And for a couple of weeks, that's exactly what I got. No texts, no surprise visits, not even one of those fake cheerful voicemails saying they'd just dropped by to check in. Honestly, it was blissful. For the first time in a long time, I felt like myself again. No one poking into my drawers, no one gaslighting me about what I meant to say. Just me, my home, and a second chance at living on my own terms. But I should have known it wasn't over. Trouble always knocks when you're finally at peace. This time, it came dressed in a suit and holding a clipboard. A man from Adult Protective Services. Said he was responding to a report. Anonymous, of course. Concerns about neglect, he said. Possible signs of mental confusion. I stared at him through the screen door like he'd grown 2 heads. You mean to tell me that while people are out there actually neglecting seniors, someone sent you here because I mow my own damn lawn and make my own pie? He blinked. Well, we have to follow up on all calls. No, you don't. You choose which calls to prioritize, and someone clearly spoon-fed you a fantasy. To his credit, he didn't push. I invited him in, just to prove a point. I showed him my planner, my prescriptions, my kitchen fully stocked. I even showed him the legal documentation I'd put in place. Trust, directive, and all. By the time he left, he was embarrassed, and I was furious. See, it wasn't just a petty move, it was a calculated attack. If they couldn't manipulate me legally, they'd try to paint me as unstable, get the system to do their dirty work. That's when I knew. This wasn't about love or concern. It was about control, power, image. Linda didn't want to take care of me. She wanted to manage the idea of me. Jeff didn't want to call me. He wanted to look like the good son while planning how to split the property when I was no longer around. And I was supposed to go quietly, fade like wallpaper. Smile like a prop. Hell. Number. So I went public. I wrote a letter, not just to friends or neighbors. I posted it in our local online newsletter, the HOA bulletin board, and the church community blog. It was titled, Still Here, Still Sane. A letter from a woman you're trying to erase. I laid it all out. The manipulation, the disrespect, the infantilizing. Not just what I had endured, but what so many other women go through silently once we cross that invisible line into elderly. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. I became the woman people whispered about at the grocery store. In a good way for once. Other women started stopping me on walks. Some nodded. Others said, "Thank you." One woman hugged me and cried. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just my fight. Jeff called 3 days later. No, hi, no, how are you? Just, why would you do that? I said, do what? Survive. He was angry. I was louder. You think I should sit quietly while you plan around me? While you handpick a home for me, reroute my mail, and talk to doctors like I'm not standing in the room? Silence. So I kept going. I changed your diapers. I fed you. I stayed up nights when you had asthma attacks. And now you treat me like a case file. I didn't deserve that. No woman does. He didn't apologize, but he listened. For the first time in months, maybe years, he actually listened. The next few weeks were strange. There were no more pamphlets, no more sneaky phone calls. Jeff started stopping by, not to check in, but to just talk. Linda kept her distance, which suited me fine. And slowly, I reclaimed more than just my space. I reclaimed my authority. I started volunteering again, not because I needed to fill my time, but because I wanted to feel useful to people who actually saw me. I joined a group of older women, all sharp, all furious, all tired of being invisible. We called ourselves the Unpackaged. No filters, no sugarcoating, just truth and resilience. We weren't going anywhere, and we damn sure weren't going quietly. People always say old age is about wisdom, but what they don't tell you is how much rage comes with it too. Not wild, reckless rage, focused rage. The kind that builds after a lifetime of being polite, accommodating, selfless, and realizing it only made you easier to silence. Well, I stopped being easy. To every woman reading this, whether you're 40 or 90, hear me loud and clear. Never trust the words, "We just want what's best." Because sometimes best means for them, not for you. Sometimes it's code for be quiet. Make room. Stop being inconvenient. And if they tell you you're imagining it, you tell them to sit down and watch, because you're not done yet. You're not fading. You're rising. This is how it ends, not with silence, but with a voice louder than their comfort. A woman who was supposed to be manageable became unforgettable. And that, my dear, is the real legacy.